Yeah. Welcome in, everybody. How y'all doing out there tonight? Thank you guys for joining us. My name is Justin Bird. I'm your host. This is my lovely co-host, Leti Zito.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to our podcast, Just Like Us. Tonight, we are going to be discussing and talking about ego and pride, the double-edged sword.
Yikes.
You know, in my opinion, pride is concerned with who's right, and humility is concerned with what is right. Your ego should serve you, not control you. And in this case, your ego is not your amigo. Let's just be real. Our ego can, your ego can really suffocate you at times. I feel like there's been several times where my ego has not been my best friend at all. I've let my ego get in the way and has been often negative, but there are positives too. Ego and pride can fuel growth. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, some people who are like have ego doesn't necessarily mean it's a negative thing. They can push you to prove yourself, take pride in your work, and strive for success. But too much ego can block progress. And if you always need to be right, you stop learning and evolving. So those are some positives and negatives, and we'll dive a bit deeper into that. Before we do, I want to say thank you again for everybody who's joining, and we hope to get some comments and some insight from you guys, because this topic that we're discussing tonight came from a close buddy of mine. We were talking last night, and we're discussing how much of an impact it's making on him. These going live. He says, "Man, I watch all of them." He tunes in and he sees them all. Just Eric, Easy E, right? Shout outs to Eric. And so we talked about the topic being something about, potentially pride, because ego is one of the things that as men, it seems like often we have this, we're supposed to be hard all the time, or we're supposed to be, the
have all the answers.
yeah. But we're talking about the sensitivity of the sensitivity side of how men are. And we got into the topic of ego and pride, and I said, that's a really good topic to talk about for people to listen to and chime in on when we go live. And so again, shout outs to Eric for giving me the idea of going, with the ego and pride thing, because it can be a downfall. It can be something that could be negative. But again, we see the positive sides of it can be fueling your growth and pushing you to do better and to take pride in your work. So there's several things that are good, and I think pride can be more of a negative depending on who you're asked. But again, welcome in, you guys. Thank you for joining us. So let's get into it. Too much ego, it can block your progress, right? And if you always need to be right, then you're gonna just probably stop evolving. And what did they say? Once you go ripe, you go rotten. If you really feel like you got it all figured out, you probably have another thing coming.
Yeah.
I don't see we have any viewers. We might.
I don't know.
Good?
I don't see that we have any, but
we're gonna double check, make sure we're good over here on our end. So give us a second. Bear with us.
There we go. There's one.
All right. So we're good. Okay. Cool.
Audience of one.
All right. So again, if you guys are here with us, feel free to comment and chime in with whatever it is you feel like you can. Because the last time we were on, we had Funmi. She was our very first person that we were able to interact with and see the comments. So we're not seeing them on our end, but we're getting this stuff figured out. This is episode 15? 15. Episode 15. We've been going since January 1st. So this is our month. So we've gone this is episode 15. So basically we've done one every 2 days, right? Well, every 2 days, more or less.
Twice a week.
Yeah, but so it comes out to we've done it's 30 days, 15 in. Yeah, we average one every 2 days, right? So to speak. But yeah, anyways, we feel like we're doing a great job as far as getting up here and showing up. Again, that's depends on who you ask. I feel like it's important for me to show up, be consistent, because with Leti, I think the 6 years we've been together, I think that's one of the most consistent things I've ever had in my life. So this is big time for me. It feels good to suit up, and feel good and show up, for myself as well as for my better half. So yeah.
Right. I think, just looking up like the definition, which I have here in front of me, of ego is the sense of self that defines our identity, self-importance, and how we perceive ourselves, in the world. It can drive confidence, and ambition, but it can also make you defensive, arrogant, and have an inability to receive feedback, right? And so I know I've, and your ego can also keep, it's fear-based sometimes, right? I
Right, yeah.
think that it's a way to protect yourself from your own reality and, or what you know to be true of yourself or others or the world, that you live in.
Right.
And it can keep you locked in a prison in your own mind, right? Afraid to ask for help, afraid to not know the answers. I know that's how, I operated. It's a slippery slope sometimes. I mean,
Right.
it takes practice. Like, don't beat yourself up. Don't be so hard on yourself, um, and don't be afraid to not know the answers. Don't be afraid to reach out or receive, some feedback, because it does help us
Yeah,
to grow,
true.
right?
Right, yeah.
And don't be afraid to do your own research,
Right, yeah.
and find, not always relying on someone else either, because you never know how they're showing up either.
Right, true.
Is their ego
Yeah.
involved?
Right.
Do they feel the need to always be right? And sometimes, how I grew up, two wrongs don't make a right, and two rights don't make a wrong.
Right, yeah.
If everybody's doing it, doesn't make it right, doesn't make it right, and if nobody's doing it, doesn't make it wrong.
True. Oh, I like that.
So,
good point. Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
And with males, okay, not every male, of course, but with a lot, there's a lot of pride issues that are often, and I'll give you guys an example. One time, not too long ago, this story, man, this was a scary story. Me and Letty we were at a 7-Eleven. I was going to get some cash out. And I'm the type of person, obviously, I mean, most of you who know me know that I'm the type of person, I'm gonna go up and say what's up to anybody. I'll say hello to anybody. And this one particular person I seen in this story, I don't know if he was Samoan, he'd be a pretty big dude. Walked in, I said, "What's up, man?" And he looked at me and he had a chip on his shoulder. I mean, he already he was waiting for somebody to get into it with. But our pride, well, let me just say, he said, "What'd you just say to me?" And I said, "What's up, man?" And I'm not the type to back down, because I just don't. I grew up in a certain way that, if somebody's pushing me, I'm gonna push them back. And that doesn't mean it's bad or good. That's kind of how I grew up. Although I'm more mature now, this was at a time. It was only like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. And I have so much to lose. I feel like I'm not gonna let anything jeopardize it. So I thought, but this guy comes and starts walking up to me, and I know the look when somebody's about to want to fight. I mean, this dude wanted to throw down off of me saying hello. So I knew we were going to get into it. So Letty's out in the car, and he walks up to me, and he's approaching me, ready to fight. And so I step back. I said, "Man, you better back the F up from me. You better back up right now," because I was already on defense. I didn't know what this person was capable of. I didn't know if he had a gun or what. But so he comes walking up on me, and he doesn't bang, and he comes to reach for him, and I bopped him one. And normally growing up, I'm a one hitter kind of, and I didn't drop this guy. So, but I seen his gun. I seen a gun on his waist when we were scuffling. I seen a gun on his waist, and it scared me. And at that very second, I seen that gun. I was thinking about my pride. I was thinking how I could have your life kind of flashed before your eyes. So this dude he just draw and bust. And I was first thing that went through my head was a little boy, my kids, thinking, man, he's, had all these things going in my head. And right away I was like, oh shoot. You know what I mean? I was and so I started backing up from this dude. And he ends up saying, he says, "Man, I'll be outside waiting for you. I'm the dead homies. I'm gonna pop you right now." And so he went outside. Long story short, Letty ended up having to leave. He's like, "You better leave here or else I'm gonna shoot you too," kind of thing to Letty. It was scary. And so I'm in the store. I'm thinking I'm looking for an exit route. You know what I mean? But this all could have been, if I wasn't too proud to just walk away. If my pride didn't get away with me being "You better back up," I could have just just play it cool and just be like, "Oh, I ain't got no problems." But my pride got in the way, and it almost got me killed, because this guy and his buddy were literally outside waiting to shoot me. I knew he had a gun, and I knew he was capable of doing it. Obviously, if he has a gun, he's capable of shooting me. So it was a scary night. And you know, now that I think about it, if I would have just kept my pride in check and not had to be so, bully me now kind of thing. Because growing up, I was a bully of bullies. Like I didn't like bullies, but I will bully a bully. You know what I mean, like go ahead and test me. I've been, smaller my whole life. I've been, short and I'm not as big as half the people I ever fought. But the point is if I would have just put my pride in check, I wouldn't have had to deal with like the fact that this guy was outside waiting to shoot me. And he was literally there waiting to shoot me. And Letty ended up having to call the cops because I'm inside and I'm like looking for a way out. I didn't even think to call the cops. I mean, that's just not the first thing that comes to my mind. Even if I'm about to get shot, I mean, you would think with everything to lose that I have going on,
I didn't want to call him either. I was like, I've never been in this situation before. There was no pride or ego there at all. It was just straight fear.
Right,
like,
yeah.
What do you do?
She's seen a scuffling in the store. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember seeing him scuffle in the store. I was going to go in, but decided to stay out. And I see Justin like bobbing and weaving, and I'm like, what is going on? And I see this other guy kind of, doing this stuff. And so, I come out like, man, come on. Like, can't we all just get along? Swung open the door and was like, that's exactly what I said. Like, what is going on here? Can't we all just get along? The guy turns around and has a gun. And I'm like, whoa, okay. That's scary. Like I said, I'd never been in a situation like this. I'm from Northern California where it's like peace, love, and granola where I'm from. Right. We didn't have this.
We didn't ask for this. This wasn't something that we were
asking
for.
It definitely wasn't.
We were
just out having a good time. Just came to get something to drink and some cash out. I think that's what we came in for, and got a whole lot more than was expected. And so, like Justin said, the guy, came towards me and told me, get in the car. This isn't a place for you.
You're
gonna, outside of the store. And I'm like arguing with this guy. So then I had to put myself in check. Like, wow,
he's got a gun. He's got a gun, and we all know, like, you're not going to win in a gun battle, especially if you don't have a gun. I didn't have no gun. I didn't have no knife. I didn't have anything.
Yeah,
I had my fist.
But I also, was worried about you and protecting you, for you to be able to get out of the store,
right?
Safely. And so I got in the car and I kind of drove around a couple of times. What I was hoping would happen is he'd be able to get into the back and then go out a back door. The second time around, that wasn't happening. So, I'm praying and I'm like, what do I do? And so, of course, I called the cops and they came and, we left in one piece.
Luckily. Yeah, I mean, it was a close call. But the whole point of this is to say that my pride could have been, I could have put it in check and not had this situation. Granted, this guy didn't have any business coming up to me and like, provoking me. But still, if I was, in my right mind, because at this time we were using, but there's still, the point is having my ego in check would have been a lot more healthier in a situation like this, because he had a gun, but I was too stubborn, too proud to let somebody, even after the fact, just kind of like walk all over me. You know what I mean? Like just come up on me like he was going to beat me up or something. I don't like that. But, now I feel like that's not going to be such an issue, because even though I still have pride, it's not a bad thing, because again, I take pride in my work. I'm a proud father, these other things that I'm very proud of. But again, being too proud can be a negative too. And, it can be dangerous, holding on to pride too tightly can make you stubborn. It can blind you to your mistakes, and it can push people away. Like who wants to be around someone who's too proud to like take, information in and be able to help them change, or, there's several things that pride can block. And so, but I feel like humility, it balances us, it balances the pride out, confidence without arrogance allows you to grow while staying grounded. Let's just be honest. If your humility balances the pride, I feel, because humility, if you're humiliated, so what is it saying? Pride is concerned with who's right. Humility is concerned with what's right. And so I find that to be a really good quote. I like that. It balances it out. It says, your ego should serve you, not control you. And I feel like there's been times where my ego's been on the positive side, again, like when I take pride for my work, but my ego is really not my amigo. Your ego is not your amigo. Right? That's straight up. Right. So yeah, pride should build you, not blind you. Stay confident, stay humble, and never stop growing. Right? These are some key factors I feel like in being able to stay focused on what's what your intentions are with pride. Like if you're proud, like I said, be proud of the things that they're going to help benefit you and your family. But being too proud to take somebody's advice, or take it, somebody's wanting to give you, hey, this hurt my feelings, but you're too proud to admit it. And I might be guilty of that still too. I might be
I know I
guilty
am.
of these things at times too. Pride can be a dangerous thing, but it's easy to let your pride and ego get in the way of things, because who wants to feel less than what they are? And your pride kind of sets that tone of like, I am not, POS. I'm not that. So why would, so it can fuel you in negative ways, but also I think it could be a way to help block ourselves from being hurt, from others telling us a certain thing. And if we believe what others think, then you tend to be that, right? Like if somebody says you're awesome and you believe it, well, then there's a good chance that you're pretty awesome, right? And so it works in the other way too, in the other sense of like, if somebody's putting you down and like you're just a low life, you're just not good, you're not a good person, and then you constantly get told that, there's a good chance that that could be the case. You end up being a person that doesn't feel good about themselves, and that you're not feeling your upward the standards of your own, a high standard. But and I think ego can help protect those kind of things in a sense. But for the most part, I feel like my ego has really gotten in the way and blocked things for me, as opposed to help me out. But it just depends on who you ask. How do you feel about that?
What
As far as like your ego being, would you say your ego is more of a positive or more negative?
I mean, I've experienced both.
Right.
I've experienced times where I don't want anybody to tell me anything, right? Because I think I know what's best. And then I make that mistake, and then I have to go, oh God, that didn't feel good. But I try not to let it get in the way of me progressing and learning and growing, because that's important to me too. I used to be somebody who was like, I had to know everything, if because a lot of people came to me, and I had to have the answers, and if I didn't, I always felt, I felt less than. That hurt my pride, and it hurt my ego, you know. And today I can learn to share that load. I'm open to the ideas of other people. And sometimes I struggle with it. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you like I've got it all figured out, right?
Right.
I'm learning and growing, and I don't want to stop learning and growing. I think, that's an important factor in our, in our pride and our ego. I'm confident in who I am, and growing in that confidence every day as I accomplish, the things that I want to accomplish in my life. And like I said, one of those was being on here. And I'm scared every time we get on here. I got nerves in my stomach every time we get on here. But I'm here, right? Half the battle we've talked about before is showing up, and admitting. I think admitting when you're wrong,
right? Yeah,
is a huge one.
Yeah.
That is something that I'm really good at.
Yeah, I agree. That is totally
I'm really,
one of her
really good at,
superpowers
like,
is being disabling, the fact that, hey, she'll be the first to tell you if something isn't right. She'll be the first to say, hey, I messed up, or I apologize, or she'll be the first to come at you. So it doesn't really, it's like her ego and pride. I feel like, she's got that pretty well in check, if you ask me, to be able to say, hey, this is what I did wrong. And sometimes it's like standing next to her, I'm like, man, what I mean? It's hard to, can't hold a candle next to her. I mean, like she's just so solid with it, and I feel like it's such a positive thing to see that, to have somebody like that you can learn from, of like, if she could do it, I could do it. Not that it's not possible, not that it's even hard to do. It's just like when you see it constantly done so well, it's just like you can't help but want to be like that. You know what I mean?
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Thank
you. And
that was my mom who, instilled that in us, that you're not better than anyone else, right? That you're on, some people know more than and when we did wrong, like she literally would take us by the hand and say, you need to go make that right. And there's emotions and things that you go through, when you're operating out of ego. I know for me, when I'm operating out of ego, I push people away. And partly I do that because I need time for me to evaluate, right? Self-reflection. I'm also very good at that. Self-reflection, looking inward at myself and looking at the whole situation, what Others have said to me, what am I saying to myself? How can I make this right? And then, I can come to you and say, okay, this is, this is where I feel like I was wrong, and apologize for that. It's being able to know when you're in the wrong,
Right. Yeah.
and being able to have a communication with somebody. And sometimes I just don't want to communicate. That's where my stubbornness, I can be really stubborn too.
Right.
But
Yeah.
eventually, right, I have surrounded myself with people that I can call or go to, that I can run things by, when I can't always come to you, because sometimes it involves you. And so,
Right.
there are people that I can bounce things off of, and then I can come and say, hey, you know, let's work this out. Like, what I did there or what I said there, I know that it probably made you feel this way. And I want to just apologize. How can I make it right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause
Because I used to say, like, even things that I was right about, sometimes even when you're right, it feels wrong. Right. Because I was like, ugh, to find out that you were right about things can be crushing.
right. Yeah. I hate when I'm right.
And then I go, did I win a prize for being right? Was it worth it to be right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I had my daughter, Brea, oldest daughter, Brea. She had, she had called me out on something, and she didn't know she called me out, but it was really hard at first, because it's like when you like to think you're a good person, you think that you're this great person and you're doing good things, but when somebody's really, emotionally hurt by something you've done, or it's not always, like a positive apology, so to speak, you don't want to think, well, hey, did I did I really hurt this person? You know what I mean? So pride can get in the way, but also keeping it in check, I feel, is important, because especially when it comes to others that you're close to, or even people you're not, having that compassion and the empathy to be able to not let your pride get in the way of being able to feel what they may be feeling. Because for me, I know that's been something that's happened to me before, or something that I've done as well. Being, like, you don't want to think that you're negative, but that having people say, I didn't like what you did, and whether you were right or wrong, if your pride is in the way, I don't think you're giving yourself the room to be able to cope with it and deal with things in a proper manner. Because you're like, I didn't do anything to hurt you, I didn't do anything to harm you. Instead of saying, well, they're telling you that you probably hurt them. They're saying, hey, you hurt me. Okay, well, then they're right, entitled to that. But I'm speaking out loud and thinking out loud about how, often it can be overlooked. Our pride can get in the way from really allowing others to, let us know how they're feeling. Because if you're constantly on defense, when somebody tells you, hey, that bothered me, and you're like, man, I didn't do anything wrong to you, that's your pride, I feel, getting in the way, and not allowing you to accept, hey, maybe I shouldn't do that again. Maybe that's something I need to learn what not to do. And if they're telling you that, then that's something that we should look into. But
Yeah,
it's easy to overlook, other people's emotions with your pride, because especially if they're telling you hurt me. And so I think it's important to take a step back often for myself, and to look at the situation, at what's going on. I'm growing as every day. I'm growing and learning, and like I said, once you go ripe, you go rotten. Meaning, if you feel like you've got it all figured out, then you're gonna have a rude awakening. I mean, we're still living, so we're still learning. That's my opinion. I don't know it all, and I'm not even close to knowing it all. But I do love the fact that I'm continuously learning, and I'm able to pour into myself, and give myself, some kudos, and say, man, you're doing a great job. Because I mean, like I said before, who's going to cheer me on better than myself? You know what I mean?
Right. And I don't think always, that it has to be a negative thing. Like, for myself, I was constantly just feeding myself negative, right?
Right.
Telling myself what I wasn't doing right, what I could do better, instead of, like, reveling in the things that I was doing well, and it taking that time to enjoy the good things that I was doing, and taking a moment to take that in and really celebrate myself for those small wins. Maybe, in the same situation, I didn't react in a certain way, um, and like clapping for myself, like, yeah, that's
Right.
progress, right, for me. I didn't react that certain way, or even if I do, if I go back to an old pattern, it's forgiving myself. That was a hard one for me. That's what kept me in this perpetual, loop of ego and pride, right? Ego and pride. Like, I was hard on myself. I was really, really hard on myself. And that's how I looked at others, that I would think that they saw me that way too, and it's getting honest with yourself. I like to write down, things about myself, like, where is my ego getting in the way here? Where am I prideful? Where can I, relax a little bit and think about what someone else's advice that they gave me, is that something that will benefit me? Maybe even writing out a pros and cons list, of what's been said, so that I can make a decision. Because, like I say, ultimately, I'm responsible for the decisions that I make. Every people can offer advice, and you got to know where that advice is coming from, what place that advice is coming from,
Right.
so that you can make an informed decision for yourself.
Right. Yeah.
So
I agree. Yeah.
and
And ego, again, it is not your ego. Having ego can definitely block, certain things for you, block your blessing, so to speak. Don't be too proud to, give praise and thanks,
and receive help.
Right. Yeah. And also, I mean, it can be a positive too. Like I said, taking pride in your work, being a proud father, these things are definitely a positive. I mean, I'm sure there's people that can argue that, but I feel like I take pride in my work. So when I'm at work, nobody's coming behind me and fixing my work, because I take pride in it. So this is a big deal for me. I do take pride in things. I take pride in how I dress. I take pride in my work, how I treat my kids, how I am as a father, how I treat myself. I'm very proud of who I am. I am very proud of me, because I'm my biggest cheerleader. I am.
Yeah.
I'm proud of the things that I can accomplish. As a person, I feel like I have integrity, and I feel like I'm honest, and I feel like I'm trustworthy, and people can, trust me with their house, their keys to their house, and like their children, and things that people may take for granted. But these are some of the biggest compliments I feel like anybody could ever give you. You know what I mean? People trust you with their children, of like, driving the car, being safe, and like, these things. I take pride in how I treat myself, so that it shows with other people. You know what I mean? How do I treat myself? I laugh with myself. I do.
I think that's a
enjoy it.
good one too,
It's
to
a
like
great one.
break up the pride and the ego thing. When you make mistakes, I was so afraid to make mistakes, and when people would laugh at me, I took that personally. And then I started to flip that script, and I just started to laugh at some of the mistakes, that I made. But it's a process. Like, no one likes to talk about that process. When you're going through things, oftentimes you get hurt, you get angry, you can get resentful, and it's a process of working that out. You can't just go from mad to like laughing, and I've tried it too. Like, I've said, what if I just laugh at this, and literally just start laughing, right? Because it's
That's what I do.
trying to get
That's what I
to
do. I do.
that better feeling. And today I can laugh at myself. I can go like, man, you were being a stubborn little bull right there.
Right.
You need to stop, right? I can talk to myself that way today, and then just literally laugh.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
I did
So
this
you did that? That was crazy.
the other day when we were skating. We went roller skating, and I haven't fallen in a long time. Like, I skate a lot, and I don't, and I do a lot of tricks, and like I'm like one legged. Like,
Yeah.
I'm constantly doing stuff
Yeah.
that, like I could potentially fall a lot. Like, literally, I'm like skating on one wheel on each. Yeah. So this one day was like last week, 2 weeks ago maybe, and I was in the middle of doing some tricks and stuff, and out of nowhere my legs kicked up, and like they went way above my head, and like back, I landed on my back, and as soon as I hit my back, I thought of how embarrassed I was, but also I had my son there, because I haven't fallen in a long time,
Yeah.
and I'm teaching him that no matter what, when you fall, it's not how you fall, it's how you get up. That's the whole the thing I'm teaching him is like, it's not falling, it's getting up and continuing to go. What makes you good? I mean, if you fall and stay down, you're not gonna learn. You're just gonna be, sad and upset and angry and whatever else comes with that. But I fell, and it was one of those falls that, even though it was a hard concrete floor, you could hear it throughout the whole place. And my ego, my pride would, we were like, I was like, I can't believe I just did that. But in the back of my mind, as soon as I thought that feeling of like how I was wearing white, of course I like white, but and I was thinking of how embarrassing, you know, because the thud itself, and like I'm like in my 40s out there trying to do a bunch of tricks and stuff, but I'm good at it. So, but as soon as I fell, and my legs like literally went up over my head, and I fell, and I'm like, I'm embarrassed because I'm right in the middle. I know everybody must have seen, or at least a lot of people. And as soon as I fell and hit my back, the first thing that came to mind after the fact that I felt initially embarrassed and was like, I didn't feel hurt because maybe my adrenaline was going. I don't think I was too hurt, but I thought of my son. I thought of Justin and how I'm training him and showing him and teaching him how when you fall, you get right back up. Whether he's seen me or not, he ended up saying he didn't, but I didn't know that. I wanted to show him, hey, you get back up and you get up and smile. I wasn't hurt physically, but I was like emotionally, I was like, I can't believe I just felt like, and it was a hard fall. I hardly ever fall.
Yeah.
But again, it was not falling that was hurtful. It was the fact that my pride was like, I was too embarrassed to really deal with it. And like, as soon as I thought that, I was like, you know what, I got this little boy I'm teaching. And so I got up and I smiled and I went and found my son. And I was like, did you just see me fall? You should have seen that, dude. I fell so hard. It was amazing. But I got right back up. That was the key. I was a little embarrassed, but I got right back up. And I'm here skating right now because you know what? When you get up and you keep on moving, that's what makes it important. That's when you learn the lesson. But you're gonna fall, and it's okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna fall.
I think our ego can get in the way of, you know, not allowing us to, or you know, being afraid of making mistakes. I know it did for me, right? So I wouldn't even. Sometimes I wouldn't even try, you know, because I was so afraid to make a mistake. You know,
right.
Dang, I'm sorry I missed that.
It was good. It was good. That was really good. Like the thud alone, it was like so. It hurt my feelings. Like I can't believe it. But the cool thing is that I know that of all the tricks and things that I'm doing out there, like I'm bound to fall every now and then. But you guys, if you see me out there, the people who know me know I get down skating, roller skating on all fours, quad skates. I'm good at it, you know. Yeah. But I put myself in danger every time I'm out there because I'm doing a lot of tricks. I go fast, I backward skate, I do all kinds of tricks. So it's bound to happen. But again, I'm not too proud to get up and laugh about it. And that's just kind of who I am. I mean, like, what am I gonna do if I get up and I look like I'm all scared or like frightened or like, oh my God? Like,
which reminds me of a story I remember when we went bowling. I mean, no, when we went bowling. And I went to, you know, it was slippery there. And I went to, you know, go throw the ball, or maybe I was coming back afterwards. But you know how hard that flooring in there is, right? And I mean, my face went, and I'm like, I'm laughing around, like, you know, and we think like everyone's looking at us, and there might be people that are laughing,
especially with a thud. You know what I mean?
And if they're laughing, I'm like, you're welcome.
My face was probably red as a mug when I fell too.
That's how I have to look at it. Like, we're gonna make mistakes. You know, we just are, no matter how much we plan or, you know, try to perform it just right. We're gonna make mistakes, and you've got to be okay with that. You know, you don't let your ego lie to you. Don't let your pride get in the way and keep you from, you know, connecting with yourself, connecting with God, connecting with your community, connecting with people that, you know better than you sometimes, or I wouldn't say better. Let me rephrase that, but know a little more than you do, right? It's about working together, not ego and pride keeps you isolated. It can, you know, it did me for many, many years, you know.
Right, and as males, if I can pipe in,
go ahead.
As males, it's almost like we're grown up, we're raised to be hard. Especially, I grew up in a gang, right? I grew up around several gang members in projects, and it was like, in order to, you know, to fit in, so to speak, or be, you really couldn't be like the type that were like a whiner or a crier, or, you know, somebody who would go rat and snitch, and like, so there were certain, you know, there were certain calibers that you had to hold yourself accountable to of being around these certain kind of people, and that was fine and all. But now that I'm older, I'm like, I highly encourage my son to be himself. You know what I mean? And so he sees me cry. You know what I mean? I was just talking to Eric, who gave me the idea for this, and I was telling him how I think it's a lost art how we are just trained to be so hard all the time. Hard meaning, you know, having that's just like, you know, I'm the man. You can't have emotions, and like, and we were talking last night, and I said, it really is. It's important, I feel, for my son to know that his emotions are like a huge part of him. just because he's a male or a boy does not mean that he doesn't have emotions like women do, and vice versa. Just because women have emotions doesn't mean that they're not able to go and kill the food to bring home too. So ego and pride, they can be positive and negative, but I feel like being able to show my son that having too much pride or being having things block you, such as having pride, it can be negative. You want to have emotions, you want to be empathetic, sympathetic, and be able to be in your feelings when needed, and not like block this and keep yourself from feeling great and wonderful. Because I think having emotions are like, it's almost like a lost art, but they're just such a huge part of us. If you're in tune with yourself, then you're okay with crying. And I am, like, you guys will probably see me cry maybe a couple times on here. Like, I don't mind. I'm 100% okay with it. And I think that makes me even more strong, to be able to have the ability to be able to cry whenever I feel the need. I mean, I don't mind being somewhere and crying during a movie. I don't. And often, sometimes it'll just be seeing somebody do a good kind. I literally cried today. Wasn't bawling, but I did. I'm a very passionate person. And I see when people do kind things, and it just makes me feel good. Like, I often cry for good things. You know what I mean? Like, I really do. Like, I'm not going to cheer it over, oh, he was mean to him. I mean, not saying I wouldn't, but just typically I'm sensitive toward positive stuff. I am. I see somebody do a good deed and I'm like, it just tears me up. I feel that's a great thing to have. We need more of that, because we got enough negativity in the world. But I mean, it depends on who you ask, but I'm okay with me. I'm good with who I am as a person. I'm proud of who I am as a person. So proud is not necessarily a negative thing. I take pride in my work. I take pride in my fatherhood and the things that I do, and I take pride in how I dress and feel. So it's important. I'm not going to exclude these things as being negative and allow this to be something that I don't, allow in my life. These are things that they're parts of my life. So, do you have anything else to add?
I mean, I think we talked about it, right? I think awareness and self-reflection, awareness of how you are being in any given moment. And that takes practice, especially when, the way I grew up was you just stuffed and stuffed and stuffed. I was often told, you're too sensitive, you're whining. And, I took that to heart. So I just shut down. And then I didn't know how to express my emotions. I stayed silent for so long that I didn't know how to communicate. I had to learn how to feel those emotions again, and not let my ego and pride get in the way and show that you're going to see how strong I am, right? I'm not always strong, and I don't want to always be strong. I want to, have people that I can lean on, who can hold me up when I'm not as strong, recognizing when I'm not,
right. Okay, I see.
and allowing other people to hold me up, and being able to come and say and be vulnerable and say, man, I'm not feeling strong right now. I'm struggling. And allowing them, because it's a blessing for someone else to be able to help you. Not only can you block your own blessing, but you can block the blessing of someone else.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's a good point.
When you allow them to help you,
absolutely,
it's a blessing, not just to you, but to them.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
And if I can add something, vulnerability, I think for last year was like my superpower, I felt, because again, getting to the topic of always being hard and having to always be like this tough person, being vulnerable is a strength all on its own. It really, really is. Being vulnerable, meaning being able to lead with compassion, and like not having to always be so hard. It just feels good to be able to. And again, what Leti just said was, having the ability to be vulnerable, and like there's people that are waiting for us to be our full potential, not just what we think that we're great at, like always laughing, or being, me being vulnerable and able to say how I'm feeling without feeling afraid or scared. This little boy sees it, and I think that this is important for him to see both sides of me as a male. I can be passionate, but I can also be a protector. You know what I mean? I can be sensitive, but I can also be strong, in the sense of like, when it comes time, I know that this little boy looks up to me, and to see all these different diverse sides of me, these different angles from a father's point of view, I think he's able to see like, hey, my dad's strong and he's sensitive. And I think that's very important for him to be able to see these things and not feel like there's limits to what he can and can't do. keep that book open. Be 100% who you are. I mean, your emotions are never wrong. I don't care what anybody says. To each and every one of you watching this, our emotions are our emotions, no matter what. They are never wrong. They're not. No matter what anybody says, they're ours. We own them. They're ours to do with what we want. They're never wrong, and that's a fact. I mean, straight up, our emotions are ours. And I want this little boy to know. I like for my family to know. I like for people who are around me. So I show it. I do not mind being sensitive and passionate and all these other things. I think that they drive me to be a better person in it completely. It really does help me to be a better me. So, but yeah, thank you guys for joining us on this ego and pride. This is a great subject, I feel.
Let it go.
And yeah.
So
and again,
you can grow.
Shout out to Eric. I know he's watching. I can't see it, but we want to get this figured out. If
Yeah.
anybody on here has any idea of what we can do to be able to see you guys as we're live, we're having issues with it. I don't know what's going on. We need to figure this out. It's kind of I would really like to see what you guys are commenting as we're going live, but unfortunately at this moment, I don't know why we're not able to figure this out, but we're going to get it figured out. But if anybody has an insight of what we might be able to do to be able to see you guys as we're live, that'd be great. And again, thank you guys for joining us. It's always our pleasure. We know that oftentimes we're not right about what we say, but we know there are several people out there that are just like us.
That's right.
And so we just salute you guys for being a part of this. We're going to continue doing this. We're going to show up. We're going to continue to be ourselves and make sure that, we're consistent, because I think this is awesome to be showing up for ourselves like this and being consistent. So
and just having these conversations, right? Opening the door for other people to, join in on these conversations with us. And if anything else, getting them to think about, their own life and how ego and pride, affects them in a negative and a positive way. And then, taking steps to make the changes that you need to make.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Again, thank you guys for joining. And for those who see the replay, we hope you guys enjoy it. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Love you.
Peace. Love you guys. Be kind to one